G'day and welcome back to the Automotive Society Podcast. This is your host Siraj, and today I'm joined by the great Alexander.
Oh, what an intro. Thanks, bro. Appreciate that.
That's all right.
My ego's gone through the roof now. Ooh.
I'm glad that's what I'm here for. How's your week been?
Yeah, it's all right. Nothing tragic has happened with my car just yet.
That's
great.
Good, that's good. That's always a good week with a BMW.
Oh, yeah. It used... Oh, actually, no. I think my oil level sender's gone a little bit wonky again.
Again?
I think so. Came up with a low oil warning twice, refilled it, 150 mil each time. That's twice in 6 days. And it's only just started to fix itself, really, but it's coming back in and out. But according to my calculation, it should be on point. So we'll see what happens
So
there.
we'll chalk it up to BMW then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a standard BMW thing.
But you should definitely buy a manual N54. So much fun.
Yeah, that's true. Except for the Sydney traffic.
Yeah, that wasn't great driving back today. All the Sunday drivers are out.
Yeah. Well, that's all right. We do love cars and we do love driving them. So every now and then it's worth it, I guess.
Once in a while.
Yeah.
Do you ever ask yourself, do you ever sit there and go, you know what, like, my car's sick, you know, your RX-7, your Evo and all the rest of it, and obviously my BMW, you know, you love your cars.
Yeah.
You ever sit there in traffic and just go, why do I do this to myself?
Yes, many times, especially with the Evo 8. I have a heavy duty clutch. So as a little bit of a backstory, my Evo makes 260 kilowatts. It's not a powerhouse. It's not crazy. I'm
Reliable though.
Yeah.
Ish.
Fairly reliable. All the problems I have is usually with the aftermarket parts. If I get a shit quality part and just gives out of me. The actual factory bits have never broken on me. So that's a good thing, I guess.
So the reliability issues are
Introduced by me.
right. Okay. Moving on.
That's the number one thing that people don't realize is the more you modify your car, the more unreliable it gets.
100%.
All these people are always like, oh, I'm putting a bit of oil pump in it to make it more reliable so it doesn't break. You know, preventative maintenance is what I call it. But what you don't understand is the more you screw with something, the more you're messing it up rather than fixing it. Putting forged internals, forged pistons in your car does not make it more reliable. Doesn't mean it won't break. If anything, it'll break more. You're increasing the tolerances. You're increasing your maintenance by tenfolds. The chances of you breaking it are higher and more expensive. So
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. Even my basic stage 2 tune is working wonders once in a while.
Yeah. Because I hear that a lot. A lot of people with 86s especially, they always go, oh, don't worry about it. I'll slap a turbocharger or a supercharger on it and then I'm going to forge the engine and it'll be super reliable.
But the thing is, all the pressure always moves to something else.
Yes.
And it flows down the engine, right? So you
do have the butterfly effect where if one thing is too strong and making more power than usual, there's got to be something down the line that's got to break.
always follows. Yeah.
Right.
Agreed.
Because you're not going to do your gearbox and your diff and your drive shafts and all that in one day. And that's one thing. But like just in general, your engine, your maintenance goes up, I think, is what the issue is. And a lot of people don't keep up with the maintenance, so their car breaks a lot more.
Yeah, agreed. But what topic are we covering today?
Today's topic is cheap, useful mods. So when I say useful mods, I'm talking in the sense of sports cars going to the track, wanting to get a faster lap time.
Yeah, or increasing the driving feel or...
Yeah. Anything that goes towards a lap time. Even if you don't ever hit the track with this car, it should be faster. You know, if I go down Old Pacific Highway one random night and...
at the speed limit, obviously.
At the speed limit.
Always
You want it to take the corner a little bit faster than it normally does, you know?
Yeah.
At the speed limit.
Yeah.
So...
I'm going to start off with a big one, though.
You're going to start off?
Yeah. Just a general one that everybody misses. A good service.
A good service,
Yeah.
100%.
100%. Just filters, oil.
Yeah, I preach that every time. Have the right concentration of coolant in there. All your gearbox oil, diff oil, fuel filter. No one ever touches the fuel filter. Please change that.
You heard it here. This is from a mechanic himself.
change your fuel filters. It really helps. Other stuff that people don't
What can
to
people
spend money on are cabin filters. I know that's got nothing to do with performance, but man, you're breathing in that air every single day when you sit in your car in traffic to and back from work or wherever you're going. Just be healthy, you know? A lot of pollen filters I pull out of cars are absolute filth. They're full of dirt, leaves. Some have ash in them from smoking. Even if you're not smoking, you're sitting in traffic next to people who are smoking. You're bound to get stuff. We live in Australia where we have a lot of bushfires. So there's a lot of ash in the air. You get a lot of smoke from hazard reduction burns. So it's just a smart idea to change the cabin filter.
So what can people expect from when they do, I guess, change their fuel filters? What's the benefit? Are we talking cleaner burning fuel or for the listeners out there so they're aware?
You're talking less issues down the line. So you won't have as many blocked injectors, right? You won't have as much debris flying around. It keeps... A fuel filter should be changed roughly about 60,000 Ks, right? 50 to 60,000 Ks. It's just one of those things that gets overlooked. Your car goes in for a 60,000 K service, and you just go, just do the basic service. You know?
Okay, so we're obviously preparing for this track day, and you being the head whiz mechanic you are, which is pretty good, right? You've obviously changed your filter. You've changed your oil. Where do you go from there as your next step on your cars?
On my cars, tires is a big one.
Agreed.
I think everyone preaches that.
I think they're pretty self-explanatory as long as you get some good quality tires. 100%.
Yeah, good quality tires will increase lap times.
But is there anything else you do on your service? Do you do coolant or anything like that, or?
Yeah. So always, make sure you're. So on service, have like a little checklist. Make sure your coolant is topped up or at the right concentration.
Yeah.
Brake fluid. Yep. Make sure it. Especially if you're going racing, make sure it's the one that boils at a higher temperature. So you want something that won't boil is basically what you're trying to get to. Then you want to make sure all your bushings are good. Anything
and we're not talking new bushings. We're just talking making sure that it's no...
They're not worn out. Make sure they're not worn out. There's no cracks. There's no way. They don't give way to certain directions, you know?
Yeah.
You want your car to feel nice and tight. Then you want to make sure your pads, rotors, which are
just checking life in them, or
life in them. Make sure they're good. Make sure they're a good compound. Don't get like $40 ones. From the nearest super cheap. And then that's like your basic stuff. Then you do your gearbox, your diff, because
So for majority of people going through track day these days, you'd probably recommend them to follow that whole checklist. And changing fluids or whatever else it's going to be. Would you change your diff oil and your gearbox fluid?
If I was taking it to a track day, yes, I definitely would do it before and top it up at least after. Make sure that it's all good.
Yeah.
And change them at a lower interval, right?
Okay.
So change them more often if you take it to the track, or if you do a spirited drive in Mexico. So. If you're a bit of a street hoon, just stay on top of little things. If you're a street hoon, please make sure that your bushings are good, because potholes and stuff and bad road conditions in Australia definitely destroy your bushings for sure.
So we've obviously covered off on the service section. We've done a bit of tires, and I guess tires are pretty self-explanatory.
Tires are pretty self-explanatory. Get something that's 200 treadwear or something.
Yeah. I mean, look, just for people listening now, what tires are you running on your cars generally? For I guess for your uses, it's general use every day. Is that right? And mostly spirited driving. And tracks,
mostly spirited driving. Something that's really good in the wet and stuff. I personally use Continental MC6s. They're more of an underrated tire.
And what are they? They're like a sports or a...
Yeah, they're very, very good. I take them on my track days all the time. They're about equivalent to the Pilot Sport 4s, I would say. Not the Pilot Sport 4S, which is a little bit higher and a little bit better.
Yeah.
But they're as good as Pilot Sport 4s, I would say. Better than RE003s. RE003s are very popular for the street, but you only give them a year, maybe a year and a half before they start drying out, and then they're not so great in the wet.
I must admit, I had a set of RE003s on my A30 back in the day. I actually wasn't a fan. I know people rave about them and have them, but I just something about them, and I can't put my finger on it. Maybe the hype was so big when I did have them. I was expecting so much, and they were, in my opinion, not as good as I thought.
I think they're really good street tires. They're really good for taking it to the track and destroying them. If you're going through them within 6 months of owning them, then yes, they're good. But once they start getting old and once you're reselling your wheels or whatever, they're not the greatest. I would not.
It's interesting because I, after that, moved to Pirelli Dragon Sports.
Yes. Pretty mediocre.
Pretty mediocre type. But I must admit, when they were new in that first 12-month period, they were great. I really did like them.
Yeah.
The life of the tyre wasn't that good, but I think that the quality of tyre that you were buying was a really, really good tyre.
Yeah, I think Michelin does a really good job with their tyres. I haven't heard many bad stories from them at all. Everyone raves on about Pilot Sport 4s and 4Ss.
But that's that next class above, We're talking Pilot Sports are really...
they're really up there.
500 or 600 a tyre.
Most of my customers run them. The other ones are RS4s.
Yeah.
Very popular. Again, not so great in the wet, but very good in the dry.
Yeah, agreed.
And quite cheap. They're not going to break the budget. Just get something.
A good compound tire.
Just get a good compound. Get good tread wear. Make sure it's going to last you. Make sure it's going to. That's the one thing I would spend money on.
Yeah,
right?
if you want to increase your track times, it's
budget.
Tires are number one.
I would not put a budget on tires.
Yeah,
is what I'm trying to say. Is the one thing
as much as you can really afford.
Yeah.
To burn.
And then, if you can't afford wheels, just put really good tires on your stock wheels, and
100%.
that would get you going for a while at least. Another thing I would say is wheel alignment.
Yep.
Make sure your tires are balanced, your wheels are balanced, and you have a nice, good wheel alignment.
That's a cheap fix.
That's a cheap fix. They're $50.
$50.
And they do a huge difference. Like a good wheel alignment from a bad wheel alignment can change so much in your lap time. Can change stability. You can come out of corners a lot faster if you have a little bit more negative camber where you need it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying stance boy. I'm just saying, -1, -2.
Yeah.
Get something in there to make sure that you're ready for the track day.
Yeah, agreed. What's next on what's next? What would you normally follow after this? Or what you look at before you go to a track day?
We touched on bushings.
Yeah.
If you have a 20-year-old or 30-year-old Japanese car or a Euro car, doesn't matter. Old BMWs especially.
Hey. That was a little dig there. I heard that one. But yes, agreed. All BMWs, 100%.
Yeah. We've had a few E30s. We know what they look like underneath. Bushings. Change your bushings to go something polyurethane.
Yeah.
Please keep in mind they will be noisier, will have way more vibrations, and be a harsher ride. It's just what's going to come with polyurethane. But if this is a car that you like driving fast, tight is better, harsher is better.
Agreed. I think people overlook this, which is they buy an old car and they say, we're going to look after it, and they obviously service it, look after the body. But I think one big thing that people miss is these polyurethane bushing kits for a whole E30, for example, they're affordable. I mean, they're $600-$700.
Yeah. That's a really good brand. Like $600-$700 is getting you the top brand,
and that is from the front of the car to the very back.
Yeah. You're talking all the control arms, tie rods, stuff like that. Just make sure that they're good, make sure they're tight, and replacing them won't hurt anything. And something like
and that with a good wheel alignment,
yes,
is amazing.
Yes.
I cannot reiterate how good it was when I got that done.
Yeah, 100%. It makes your car completely different to drive.
It feels 5 years newer.
Exactly. I think that's the really important part. It gets rid of all the slop in your drive line. Makes it a lot easier to drive. Okay. What would be next? What would you be looking at?
I think from there we obviously look at some basic mods. Obviously, nothing that's going to blow the bank and nothing that's going to absolutely destroy your engine. But I think that I would sort of generally look at things like cross bracing.
Cross bracing,
100%.
Chassis stiffness is one of those where it depends on the car, I think.
Correct, 100%. I find that majority of people will just do a front cross bracing. And I think, in my opinion, I think that's more than enough for most cars. I think experiences that we've had with E30s, and as we know that E30s have some interesting characteristics, whereas a lot of people have had the rear strut towers when they have very stiff coilovers or anything like that. The actual rear tower where you mount the shocks actually break.
Well, that's an issue that they've had with E30, E36, E46.
Yeah.
Everything that goes into sort of like a time attack, fast cornering.
Yeah, and for me, it's a front strut brace is more than enough to sort of get that sorted. I don't think you need too much more than that, actually. But I think it's really important.
I think chassis stiffness is not necessary completely. It depends. If you have a lot of understeer, you might want to do something like stiffen up the rear. If you have crazy oversteer, you might want to stiffen up the front a little bit. But I don't think it's necessary. It's quite cheap to do it. Like, it's probably $200 or something. You can buy a strut bar. Whether which one you get and which useful one. If you are getting a nice strut bar, I would highly recommend one that has a brake master cylinder brace on it.
Yeah. What's that exactly for the people?
So when you on old Japanese cars, at least, the firewall was very thin. So when you press the brake pedal really hard, it flexes the firewall back a little bit.
Right.
And the whole booster and the master would actually flex.
Wow. Okay, I've never heard of this.
And as the firewall is flexing back, your whole master cylinder is moving back, which means you're not getting the travel that you want.
Right. Okay.
It's very minute, and it's only under really hard braking. But if you're taking it to the track, then this is something to keep in mind. You will get better braking, and you'll also make sure that your firewall's not flexing too much. So
that's a good sign for those people with older Japanese cars.
Yeah, I do it for my Evo and my RX-7.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit necessary for older cars, especially old Mazdas and Nissans, like Silvias, Skylines. They all sort of have old flexible firewalls that need to be braced and looked after.
Okay. And what's next on the list? What else would you do?
Well, a thing that everyone likes to do is an exhaust. You like to hear your car.
You do. It changes the whole experience. Not necessarily going to make you faster, but can do if you use the right metals. I'm hitting a lot of people.
Well, the other thing is, which is an argument, is a louder exhaust at least. You can hear what your engine's doing rather than having to look down at the RPM all the time. You can kind of hear when you want to shift, when you don't want to shift.
Yeah.
It helps particularly with downshifting. Not so much upshifting. You kind of know where that is.
Yeah.
That's one thing. The other thing is it lets other drivers know where you are on the track around you. And
so it's also a bit of a safety thing, I guess, as well.
Yeah, you can be loud pipes save lives. We've heard that many times before.
People listening going, what are these people talking about? But it really does, actually.
It really does.
People are aware of where you are.
Yeah. Well, I definitely recommend this to people who have motorbikes. Get a little bit louder motorbike if your bike is too quiet. Doesn't have to be insanely loud, but just something that lets everyone know where you are on the road.
Yeah. Agreed with that. And I think a lot of people who run stainless steel or titanium exhausts, I mean, how many kilos would they save with their full exhaust system? They would save what, 6 to 15 kilos?
Yeah.
Just depending on the car.
I measured the stock exhaust system on the RX-7, the FD.
You weighed it?
Yeah, I think it came to like 22 kilos and 23 kilos.
And this is standard from factory.
That's the standard one from factory. Whereas,
and what did you replace it with?
If you get it, I haven't done it yet, but the titanium one I want to get is I think it's like 5 kilos, 4 kilos.
Wow. Okay, so that's a massive weight saving right there.
Yeah, it's a quarter of the weight.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Exhaust. Well, yeah, it's just a helpful, good one, right? Like it's just one of those mods that it's not too expensive. Depends on what you do. Yeah, like if you have a SS wagon, for example, like a Commodore, and you want to get a X-Force exhaust, you're looking at $1,700, $1,800 for an exhaust alone, and that's just part of life. You can go to the local exhaust shop and get a custom one made up for, I don't know, $800 or something.
Yeah.
That is up to you. So it ranges, your budget ranges and the cost ranges. If you have an old Japanese car, you can normally get a cheaper one. But they are going up in price. I don't know why, but people are spending more money on exhaust for some reason and they're going up.
And I think even if you're a basic first, you've just bought your first car, whatever it is, right? Mazda 3s or whatever people are running around these. Actually, it seems like P-platers these days have so much money.
It really does. They have new Golfs.
I know, it's crazy. But even if you just go to your local exhaust shop and say, hey, look, can I just get some exhaust work done? I mean, they can start as cheap as $200.
They really can.
They really can,
yeah.
Not that it's going to make your car faster, but if you just want that little bit of a roar or rumble, and when you're 17, that's cool, I guess.
Yeah.
I think I'm at an age now where I don't quite like that, but back then I had it. It was awesome. They can get that exhaust work
I think it really depends on the car, right? But if I have my track car, I want it to be a little bit louder.
Yeah.
Some cars are different to the others. Like my Evo is very quiet driving around, but once I'm on it, you can hear the wastegate open and it scream at full boost.
Oh yeah, it sounds good. I like it.
Yeah, my Evo goes from like really quiet to really loud, really quick. But if I'm just putting around town, driving in streets, it's fine.
Yeah,
not too loud, and I think I really like that. Another one is intake.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
This is one where I would not spend a lot of money. I really wouldn't. I don't think it makes any difference in the grand scheme of things. What you go with?
Agreed. I think it's one of those things that I think it makes your driving experience a lot better.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome. And I think that there are some great quality cold air intakes out there. But I think that if you're in a position where you've got your standard car and you're putting a pod filter or whatever else you're putting on there, I think it's one of those things that really you have to take to a tuner and say, hey, look, it's got more airflow now. How can we now further increase the power?
Yeah.
And I think people are slapping them on there and saying, look, that's a 10 kilowatt upgrade, but I just don't see it.
Well, it needs to be paired with something, right? It's not just more air doesn't just make more power.
Correct, yeah. It needs to be with more fuel or more spark.
More air is probably leaning out your engine a little bit, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't work as simple as that. So more air means you need to pump more fuel into it as well.
100%.
So you need to increase your injector duty cycle and your fuel pump voltage. There's a lot of things that go along with it. It's not something that is worth a lot in the whole scheme of things when it comes to kilowatts.
No, at least not on a standard non-tuned car.
No, definitely not.
I mean, if we're talking, I guess modern day cars are a little bit different, especially with the new turbochargers they've got coming out these days. In something like a 135 like mine, and you really want to go to a stage 2, I mean, a standard 135i from the factory N54 makes 225 kilowatts. And I mean, I'm part of the BMW groups on Facebook and all the rest of it, and people who are putting dual cone intakes, which are pretty much 2 pod filters on their motors, with the correct supporting mods, which also came with, as you would know, we did it together, catless downpipes and intercooler. And this is just a basic, tune. And most people are sort of running on dynos anywhere between 270 to 280, 290 kilowatts at the wheels. And for a stock standard car and all those performance mods costing, depending on how you do it, $2,000, $3,000 roughly. That's a huge power increase.
I think
what we're trying to sort of wrap up here is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you're a better mechanic. Well, I say better. You are the mechanic. I'm not. I think pod filter or cold air intakes are one of those things that really have to be wrapped up in a package with something else.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the big point here is just putting a pod filter on your car is not going to change much.
Correct.
Another thing is if you want to stick with the factory airbox, please, you're entitled to your own choices, obviously, but I personally, this is my opinion, just on record, I don't like the K&N air filter panels. When you put a K&N air filter panel in your stock airbox, it is not giving you any power increase at all.
No, it won't. There's probably better airflow, to be honest.
And it's making it worse for yourself in the future. I know they say it's clean, reusable, so you can clean it, put it back in.
Yeah.
I can tell you now, I've worked in many mechanic shops. I'm a mechanic myself. No one cleans it. No one gives a shit. Just like, if you're going to do the work yourself, do it. But do you know how much work is involved in cleaning a K&N filter properly? You got to take it out. You got to air it out. You got to clean it with whatever solution that you use. And then you've got to let it dry with the cleaning solution. Then you have to oil it. Then you have to ensure that that thing has dried at least for 24 hours with the oil. Because if you put that in to your car, and God forbid your car is a Subaru Forester, WRX, or one of those cars, they do not take well to that oil. The K&N oil, if that gets in your engine, your car's just going to be blowing smoke and not running right. It's going to misfire. It's not going to... There's so many more problems that come with the K&N air filter panel when not maintained right. And maintaining it is a 2-day job to clean it properly. No mechanic's doing that. I can tell you now. I don't care how good the mechanic is. They're not doing it.
They heard it here first.
What they're doing is airing it out with a pressure cleaner. Like they'll just put some compressed air through it. Make sure it's nice and clean. Put it back in. They're not going to oil it. They're not going to make sure it's nice. It's not worth it. It's cheaper and probably better for your performance to just put a factory or an equivalent
OEM
air filter
yeah.
panel in the car and change it every service rather than putting a K&N one and then never changing it again.
So I think to sum up that topic, what we've said in a nutshell is if you want some nice noise, it makes sense. And unless it's paired with something, be very cautious about whether you're
pretty
going to
useless.
put it
Pretty useless, yeah.
Depending on your application, that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have a sick car with ITBs, go for it, mate. But
Sick as. I love ITBs.
yeah, everyone does, I think.
Anybody with ITBs, reach out to us because we definitely want to see your car.
Yes.
And would love to have a conversation with you.
For sure. That would be amazing. Especially those people that run ITBs with turbos.
Oh, yeah.
I think those setups sound insanely good.
Yeah. Make sure you write to us. We'll put an email somewhere. You got to send us an
email. Another one I've got, and this is a really, really weird one. But gear knobs, steering wheels, shifters.
This is an interesting one. Okay.
This is an interesting one in the way I think I have tested it personally on my own cars, and I've seen a difference, massive difference between these.
With your knobs?
Yeah. Yes.
Whoa, bro. Get your mind out of the gutter. We're talking about gear knobs here.
The feel of the knob changes how fast or slow I drive.
That's interesting.
Steering wheel especially. You want a steering wheel that you can grip onto pretty easily and change without slipping. Obviously, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. You want a steering wheel that is comfortable in your hands. You like it.
And I think this is something that a lot of people miss, right? Where we all look for things to increase our power, increase our cornering speeds and things like that. But I think at the end of the day, the driver also has to feel comfortable within that position.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it makes a huge difference.
Whether that's short shifter or a knob or whatever makes you feel comfortable in that car, I think it's right. And I'm one of those people, as weird as it is, but I prefer quite a sort of circular gear knob.
Yeah, me too.
And I feel like it's just nicer for my hand to grip.
Yeah, but some people like something that's long and slim and, they can grip onto it from the side.
We're still talking about knobs. I mean gear knobs. All right?
Yes. So, that can make a little bit of a difference on a lap time, but more than that, it just makes you comfortable. It makes you like the car a little bit more. It makes you a little bit more motivated to drive it.
Yeah, and I think if you feel more comfortable, it increases your confidence.
Yes.
And if you're increasing your confidence,
yes,
you're increasing your ability to say, you know what, I can brake here, I can shift here, I can brake later, I can accelerate earlier. And I think that confidence is actually probably one of the most important things at a track day.
100%.
And it's really just understanding your limits and where you can push your car to.
Yeah, the common knowledge is seat time gives you the most confidence, which is true.
100%.
It does. But if you're uncomfortable in all
in the
100
process
hours
of
the seat time, it won't really help too much. You're still going to feel a little bit irky and if your short shifter is crunching into second gear every time and you try to take it slower to make sure your gearbox has a nicer time the next time, it's not going to help your lap time at all. If anything, you're taking away so much from your lap time. Make sure your shifters are nice feeling. It feels good. The knob is good. The steering wheel's pretty self-explanatory again. And then another one is seat. If you're being
Yeah.
flown around your seat and you have to go slower because you don't want to end up in the passenger seat. It's you're taking away from your lap time.
Yeah, agreed. And I think between you and I, we've owned a lot of different cars with a lot of different seats and a lot of different, I guess they were built for different purposes, right?
Yep.
And I mean, the cars that we've owned, which is our 318Is, I mean, they were comfortable, they're great, but that's what they're made for and that's what they came out of factory. So for us, which at the end of the day, you know, we were 20 years old, throwing stupid engines into them, but still having stock seats.
Yep.
It was just ridiculous.
It was,
and
yeah.
We've obviously moved on. Siraj has had his bride seats and they've obviously been really, really good for him.
Yeah, yeah.
Me personally, I've had some old Recaros that I had redone just to match the E30 and they looked great. They were very comfortable. I then moved to the Volkswagen Scirocco. By the way, the seats are not so great for holding you. They're pretty shit.
No.
They're quite overrated. But my BMW seats that I've got at the moment, they're awesome. They've got bolster support, which is adjustable.
Yeah.
And, you know, lumbar support as well. And they're all adjustable, and those seats have been really, really good. I highly recommend them. They're really
newer cars,
comfortable.
I feel like, tend to cater for that kind of stuff a lot more than the older cars did. I've always had Silvia's Skylines, 300 ZXs.
You're stuck in the 90s pretty much.
I am stuck in the 90s. I think the newest car I've owned is my Evo 8, which is a 2003. So that is by far the newest car I've owned.
Yeah, and I think people don't really know, but I used to be in that 90s period, but
You used to be in the 80s period.
I used to be 80s, yeah. I used to be 80s, early 90s, and I've moved to the other side. I'm a bit more in the 2010s and not quite new yet, but, you know, in
well,
this
your
sort of
Scirocco
period.
was what, 2015, 2016?
13.
Oh, okay. Yeah, fairly new still, fairly new. The combination that worked for me when it comes to interior is I used to have a Silvia S14 with the number plates Cookie.
That's right. We're talking about episode 1. Make sure if you want to hear the rest of that, go back. Go listen to that.
Did we talk about the S14? I don't think we talked about the S14.
In our pilot episode, we did.
Did we?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, we did.
So I had a Silvia S14, and the combination that worked for me on the interior after I was done with all the performance mods and realized that it wasn't the car that was slowing me down. It was me. It was the fact that I wasn't comfortable, so I was going slower than I could. I had bride seats in it.
What did you call that color again?
Stradia
on the back?
2. The back, it's called Venus, is what
Yeah.
they call it. The Venus Stradia 2s. They're multicolored. They're like, depends on what angle you look at them. They change colors and they're glittery. They were pretty cool.
They're glittery.
I think they were glittery, but like a flake in their paint kind of glittery, not like shining glittery.
And it's funny,
Twilight vampire.
You still quite like them. I know you do.
I do.
I'm not quite that person. I think they're a bit more for Wednesday night car meets than anything else.
I think they're really cool in the way that not everyone could see them. They weren't like out for show. I wasn't going around being like, look at the back of my seat. But I knew that they were there and that was cool for me.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's that mindset around it.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people look at these bride Recaros these days and they say, wow, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, you know?
Yeah.
Even some of these are secondhand. People are looking at them out of Renault Megans, right? Wrecked ones.
Yep.
And they're paying big money for it. But
like the Evo Recaros.
yeah, but
they sell for a lot.
I think people are missing that when they go to upgrade their seat, there are very affordable brands that do some good quality work.
Yes, there are. Yeah.
Cobra do a whole range, which are quite affordable. They make some great seats. Obviously, you have to get them engineered.
I mean, you can even get SAS branded ones, which are ADR approved.
Yeah, right.
Which is if it's a cheap track car, like a cheap Honda Civic or a Lancer or something, then
Great.
yeah, why not?
They get the job done.
Yeah, 100%. Till you can afford a better one, or maybe you don't want to upgrade in the future. Like, who cares?
And there's a seat I've never tried, but I do really want to get a set eventually. Are they called Corbu? Corbu, that's it, from America.
Corbu.
They look very cool. Affordable prices.
Yeah, they do. They look really stylish,
yeah.
and you can get some aggressive ones as well.
Yeah, I mean, you can really spec them. I think that the ones that I were looking at were the real base spec. I think they were called the GTS 3 from memory. But you can really get them upgraded. I mean, you can get them with leather, heated seats, cooled seats, Alcantara. You can get colored stitching with the way you want. And yes, the price goes up, but I think as a basic seat, they're brilliant. They look great.
Yeah. You don't need to spend a lot of money. You just need to get something that's comfortable for you, right? That's the basic gist of it. You don't have to get $1,000 Velo if you don't want to.
No way.
Doesn't make sense.
And what else would we cover? Oh, sorry, we spent a lot of time on seats, but
We did. I think interior is one of those things where you spend the most time in, so
Yeah.
it needs to be important.
Yeah.
Just cater it to yourself, you know. What else have we got?
100% cater it to yourself.
Well, I kind of touched on brake pads and rotors.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Get something that's good for heat, that's not prone to cracking. I think that's pretty good. I personally use DBAs, and I've been using Bendix Ultimates because I don't like to spend a lot of money on pads when I don't need to. My calipers are Brembos, so they're more than strong enough to even make a crappier pad act really good. There's a lot of clamping force in that. So that's that.
Yeah, I think we both. I run DBAs on mine. They've been really good, but my pads are, because I daily drive it quite a lot. I'm running Euro Pluses. For the pads, they've been really good. Bit of brake dust, but have to expect
that's right. I think that's
European
a sacrifice that's worth it.
Yeah,
for sure. Another one is a tune or a flash. Depends on what car you have. If you are doing the mods such as exhaust and intake and you know,
and I think this is probably the most applicable sort of tune, I guess, for people these days, because I think a lot of people are running turbo-based cars. I think flash tuning is becoming a bigger thing, and it really is a big thing now.
I have a lot of opinions on flash tuning.
You do. I mean, this man does a lot of tuning.
I think flash tuning is good in a general way. Like, yes, you will get more power and you'll probably get more torque and it'll act a little bit better.
Yeah.
Like, you will see a considerable improvement.
Yeah.
But it's not catered for your certain car, right? It's just sort of like a generic thing.
Yeah.
That if you have these mods, you put this tune in and it should give you this power increase. Every car is different. Every engine is different. All the tolerances are different. A generic tune will not give you 100% of what your engine deserves.
Agreed on that.
There can be moments where it's not good for your engine. Although that's more on the rarer side, it is possible. Or the other one is it's just inefficient. You just spent $1,000 on a flash tune, that probably give you nothing, you know? Like, you probably made no change. So there's cases on either end. But for the mass, it is okay. You will get some power increase.
Yeah.
You will feel it. It might not be perfect. You might get a weird lurch at a certain RPM. But I
think the biggest tip from us for flash tuning is do your research. I think there's quite a few companies out there doing some good quality flash tunes. There's some other companies that don't do some nice quality flash tunes. But I think overall, just looking at it, I think APR is probably a good and nice and easy one to look at for Golfs.
Yeah, for Volkswagens.
And they're very, very generic. You sort of, how can I say this? We had a friend of ours get one tuned, walked in, he gave him $1,000. And within 15, 20 minutes, they came back and said, hey, look, it's done, right?
Yeah.
And to be honest, his car was faster.
It was.
It was, 100%. And, I mean, he didn't go for the most expensive tune or a stage 2 or anything like that. It was a basic flash stage 1 tune just to squeeze a little bit more out of it. And I think he got somewhere around 18, 17 kilowatts, which is actually not a bad increase, to be honest, for that price.
No.
But then you look at people like me who I ran a JB4 piggyback computer on my car, and you being the mechanic whiz you are, you've obviously taken it for a drive. Tell us what you think. It was good. It made more power.
It did make more power. It at certain RPMs under certain conditions, it wasn't the greatest.
It wasn't very smooth.
It wasn't as linear as you would like. There were a few dips in there, which I think was a bit weird. I don't know if that was the sensors playing up with the tune or the tune itself just not being perfect.
And this piggyback, when we say piggyback tune, I guess it's an ECU that sits on top of the ECU that's in the engine.
It just it lets the stock ECU do all the hard work, and it just likes to take over some of the ignition and boost
and it just tells it what to do. And this is one of those things that, I mean, we paid $500 for it. You plug and play, and it's good to go. I think after that we ditched it. We've picked up another company, which is MHD Tuning, who do a lot of tuning for BMWs.
And you have a few choices always.
And that's flash tune, and obviously you've driven it again with the Stage 2. And
A lot better than what
Right.
the JB4 did. A little bit more coin, I'm guessing.
no, cheaper.
Cheaper.
Yeah. I think the JB4 has better features. It came with a
okay.
lot of things such as, safety modes and really, really good data logging. And there were some great features. You could turn my petrol gauge into a boost gauge.
Oh,
That was sort of cool, right?
That is cool, yeah.
But MHD, you've now driven it.
Yeah, I think this one's a lot better. You make more power on the same mods. And this is butt dyno, by the way. This is all
Yeah.
gauged by a butt dyno. We haven't actually put it on the dyno yet. But it's a lot more linear.
And it's clean, right?
I
It
haven't
pulls
felt
clean.
those dips that we did last time. So
Yeah.
I would say it was a good investment in
I
that
think
way.
Siraj will have his point on this, but I think from my perspective on flash tuning and piggyback tuning is just do your research on the company you're doing it on.
Yeah.
Make sure there are some other people with some good experiences on it. I think Mr. Joe Blow down the road who can do it for $500 isn't necessarily the right person for you.
Yeah.
I think that as long as you've got a good... I think the hardest thing for me around flash tuning and everything else, especially with my BMW, was just support, and it was the fact that so many people have run MHD as opposed to JB4 here in Australia. I think America's probably a little bit different.
Yeah.
But the fact that I could go on this Facebook group and say, hey guys, like I've got this wrong. It's throwing a code. What's the recommended fix to the solution? And people would come back to you and say, hey, look, you need some new injectors. You need some new spark plugs. Get some elder coils to put in, so on and so forth. And I think that's the biggest key to flash tuning for me.
Yeah. There is a lot of support. There's a lot of people that have done the same tune and they know what's good for it and what's not good for it, right? If you have a certain issue, you can just be like, this is not happening, and they'll be like, oh, what are you running for fuel, or what are you running for this?
Yeah,
and
can you data log for me?
Yeah, and they'll just look at it and be like, oh, yep, this is where you're going wrong, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So in that way, the community support is definitely a lot better.
And I think it's
a custom tune won't give you the community
100%.
support.
And I think if you're there saying to myself, do I stage 2? Do I stage 1? Do I flash? Do I not flash? I think it's okay to flash if you've got the right company.
Yep.
But I think if you're doing anything bigger, Siraj is probably the bigger tuner than me. But I think from there you sort of move into your full custom tune with an aftermarket ECU.
If the car is a dedicated track car that
or power monster.
Yes, or makes crazy amounts of power and spends most of his time in the high RPM, I would not go with a flash tune as the permanent solution. It might be a temporary solution to get you to the dyno, and then you can clean it up for sure. But it probably won't be dead on for every car.
Yeah.
If yours is, then you're just a lucky man.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because most of the problems that I've had with my car, yes, some of them have to do with the tune and the supporting mods that I have.
Yeah.
And it was more about upgrading little other bits and pieces within my car to help that tune perform correctly.
Yeah. So you had to cater your car around the tune rather than the tune around your car.
I mean,
which
we
is
ended
the
up
opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've ended up doing one step called a spark plugs, which is very common.
Elder coils.
Yeah. Elder coils in it. And they were the big two fixes, really, on my car. And they've worked wonders.
So you went the other way, basically. You did the tune first or the flash first and then realized it had these problems and then catered for them with hard.
It's a bit interesting because
hardware.
With BMW, I put all the supporting mods which I needed, which was a new intake, dual cone intakes. It was the catless downpipes and the intercooler, and that's where you really needed to get it to that stage 2 point or stage 2 plus is what I'm on now. And a lot of people said, "Hey, look, you need to upgrade the ignition coils, you need to upgrade the spark plugs." And originally, I did the spark plugs, and it worked great. I didn't upgrade my ignition coils, but it did get to a point where it said, "You know what? I really have to follow up with the next step," and that's what I did, and it ran great.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing. All right, I think we've covered most of them. I think we've covered most of the useful mods, and we hope people are being safe and enjoying their time on the track for sure.
Yeah.
If you haven't taken your car to the track and you say one day I will, that's not a thing. Come on, mate. Just get
on with it.
Book a ticket. That's it. Like that's what I did. Book a track day, and then that's your deadline. Shoot for it. Just do it.
And if you have any questions at all for us, send it to our Instagram, which is
the Automotive Society _. It's super easy to find. We'll make a post about this episode coming out soon too. And
hopefully you got something out of it.
Yeah, for sure. Let us know if you have any questions. Happy to help. But I think my biggest thing for advice-wise is even if you don't have all these mods, just try it. Give
it a go.
Try it.
I think it's one of those things now where with 3 or 4 YouTube videos, everything's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Most people are just scared of breaking their cars, right? And yours are the same, Alex, aren't you?
Well, I was a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, but it's just a fear that you have to get over in the way that if you push your car on the street, you are being more rough with your car on the street than you possibly can be on the track. The track is a lot smoother. It's a lot nicer on your car, more linear, and you don't have to push it. No one's got a gun to your head saying, no, you have to get faster lap times. If you're comfortable with where you're at and you don't want to push it more on that day, don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, just book a track day, have fun. You will find it fun even if you go 40 k's an hour around the track.
I think as long as you do a good service before you get there, I think that's the main key to this whole thing.
The other one that people love to talk about is coilovers and lowered springs. I would say do a track day before you do those mods.
100%.
Do a track day before you start messing with the steering geometry. And then once you do, you'll realize if you've gone wrong or if it's improved.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people sit here and go, you know what, how come I can't mess with it because everybody else is running coilovers? But I think this is probably a not so technical way to look at it, but I've got an M Sport 135i, right?
Yeah.
And BMW are one of the biggest manufacturing company of cars in the world. Fair comment.
Yep.
And they've obviously put time and effort and research and development to making that suspension work.
Yes.
And someone like me has gone in and thrown $1,000 coilovers from Taiwan in them, which aren't even brand name, right?
Yeah.
And everybody says, yeah, it's stiffer, it's faster. Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
And for my use, my stock suspension has been really, really good. So be very careful before you start.
Yeah. Especially if you have like an 86, which is the most common track car today. You definitely don't need suspension. I can assure you, I've had a few 86s and taken them around the track, and
they've been great.
Yeah, they've been great. Like, I've never ever been like, oh, I need stiffer suspension. It's not a thing. That's our advice for you. Just go out and do it. It's not hard. It's not too expensive. If you're doing all these mods, I think you'll be fine. Just -1 mod for a little bit, postpone it, and do the track before.
100%.
That way you can see an improvement the next time you go.
Yeah.
All good.
That's all. That's everything from us for this episode.
Yeah.
But we'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah. Thank you for listening, and tune into the next one. Thanks.